morning, everyone. Today I'm joined by Rohan Williamson, Professor of Finance in Bolton, Sullivan, and Thomas A. Dean Chair of International Business at the McDonough School of Business, and our Vice Provost for Education in the Office of the Provost. So Rohan, thank you for joining us today. Now, given your service and leadership over more than 2 decades on our faculty, your role as Interim Dean of our McDonough School of Business and now as our Vice Provost for Education has strengthened our community in many ways. Can you share a little bit about your time at Georgetown and your work and your priorities now as Vice Provost for Education?
Wow, Jack, thank you very much. And just want to lead off by thanking you so much for your service to the university. And in your opening got me thinking that it doesn't seem like that long ago that I was the new guy. And now I'm looked at as one of the veterans here. But, you know, as I reflect on my time here at Georgetown, I think back at, you know, when I first started. I mean, and, you know, for instance, we didn't have a business school building of our own, and that's changed. You look across campus, there are buildings everywhere. But in this drastic change over 22 years and me being the longtime veteran here, a lot of things have remained constant, and just what the university stands for. I mean, as an assistant professor, you kind of focus on getting your research done, establishing your scholarship, and then you evolve into opportunities to see the whole university. As academics, we developed in our silos and what we're doing. And my time here and the different positions have given me an opportunity to see colleagues in a different light, not just in the business school, but across campus. And so you view it in a very different light and realize that we're at a place, and luckily so, we're at a place at a university with tremendous students, fantastic colleagues with fantastic skills, in a wonderful city and a place to be. And you kind of grow in that as a member here. So over my years, I've seen, I think, great change, and much more for the best. And as you take on leadership roles, you draw on your learning that you've had, and learning from different groups. And as my time as the dean, another interesting part of it is you see the history of Georgetown. You get an opportunity to meet the alums, and you see their dedication to the school and how much they really love the place. And I comment on that all the time. And my kids were also Georgetown alums, and they've seen it from a different perspective. So over the years, I think I've, though I'm local and I've known Georgetown pretty much my whole life, I've learned a lot. And obviously I have a lot of affection to the school because I sent my own kids there. And it's great to see that the stated goal and the stated drive of the university based on our curator personalities has continued, and it permeates on everything about the university. So my time here has developed this vision. And as I think about the future, I think about being a part of what the university can become. And by that, as we see changes in our society and developments, we see that we look into the future and the development of students, how they change, how we can continue to mature and grow in meeting that need, meeting the challenges of our society, meeting the opportunity, the global opportunities for our students, and to leverage what we've known in our history and our growth, and looking backwards and things that we've done in the past, and the impact that we can have with the university, primarily in our research and preparing our students to be change makers in society. So, I mean, just a broad answer to the question is, reflecting on my time here has given me an opportunity to see much more of what this school can be, and just the excitement in this new position of what we can do in the future.
Talk a little bit about this new position. What's taking your attention? Where are you focusing yourself right now in the role?
Interesting question. It's interesting because when I think about your question, I think about, well, when if we go back to when I took the position, which is very different from what I did when I started working in the position, as you as you can imagine, that the first part first, and I think about the position. I said, well, how can I think about maintaining the culture, the tradition, and the drivers for Georgetown in a changing environment in meeting the changes of education as we go forward? How can I reimagine Georgetown from being here on the hilltop to potentially having a broader impact in our local community, in our global community, and creating opportunities for students to grow and learn, and for students to impact things locally. So I looked at that as a very important challenge. And how can I work with other members of the Georgetown community and meeting your goals and how you think about this is what we are as a university. My role was to, how do we get there and continue to move in that trajectory? And so I prepared myself to first learn exactly what we're doing, get a better understanding of what we're doing, learn from our students, and how do they see Georgetown, and what are their expectations along with the parents, and then look at the broader higher education community and see where we are and how we can continue our leadership role as a global educational institution. And so that's how I approached it, and also leveraging our DC location, because this is one of the more vibrant global cities in the world. So that's how I approached it in a very exciting way. And shortly after as I accepted the job, we were in the pandemic phase, and realized that some of the things that I thought, okay, let's think about this then develop it, would be happening much quicker, right? It created a new set of challenges. So the position has changed, just as everyone else's position at the university has changed in how they do things day to day. So it was much more a reaction, and really an opportunity to quickly see the capabilities of our administration, of our staff, of our faculty, in reacting to what we're facing. And for those that may not understand universities, we're not built for this, because universities take millennia to change. We've been doing fundamentally the same thing for a long time. Now we're being asked to make a change immediately, or basically over the weekend, to a changing environment, and to make broader decisions in very, very short period of time. So the role has changed, and now it's making shorter term decisions with an eye on the long-term future. Sure. And that again is a challenge, and it's very difficult, constant work, but it also is exciting, because now we can leverage some of those things that we have achieved for the long-term impact of Georgetown. And I'm maybe crazy to say, but I feel honored to be in a position right now to be able to be a big part of that, meeting the challenge, and a big part of making a broader change for higher ed in general, and more specifically for Georgetown.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, one of our practical assumptions as we approach this academic year was the need for us to build hybrid, flexible approaches to teaching. Can you talk about our planning for the fall and some of the work that you and our faculty have been engaged in as part of our preparations?
Well, let me start with wow. One thing that's so wonderful about the university is somewhat our initial investment started probably as long as 20 years ago. And then those that preceded me, they thought of the idea of, wow, with the growth of technology, this is going to play an important role in how we think about higher ed. So let's start making initial investments in some of this technology that may be helpful in the classroom. And with that, I mentioned earlier about the new business school building. Well, within that, there was a lot of technology built in the classrooms, and a lot of renovations done on campus, which allowed us to videotape and record classes. So that was basic investment in technology. And we saw at that point that would be an important component in how we actually think about education in the future. So that was the foundation that was there. And and the thought was we'll evolve into using a virtual or hybrid flex environment in order to deliver education, and not sure how will this work, how will it be accepted by students, parents, and faculty and the like. But then the pandemic came, and now these decisions and the ability to do this was we're put in hyperdrive in how we're going to get there. Some of the technology was there, initial investment in the technology. So that was the easy part. That was the easy part in that we can record things and we can have online. That was, and it was financially a big investment, but there was a much larger investment to be made, because what we were doing, we wanted to do much more than say, it's the same thing, but now you're watching. I mean, that's just use of the technology. So what we did, we invested in pedagogical change. So it's more about thinking about how can I teach this in a different way and better than what was done, than what we have been doing to prepare our students for this new environment. So the existence of Canvas that was already there, and part of our infrastructure, they went into an effort of educating all our faculty, all close to 2,000 of them, to say, this is how you can do this. And we had classes, and it wasn't just classes in learning technology, it's about the pedagogy. We had smaller groups. How we thought about the pedagogy, said, well, it's not the same way to teach a large section of, say, calculus as you would to teach a small section in philosophy or theology. So we said, let's group a faculty in similar teaching mechanisms, small classes versus large classes. How can you change your pedagogy in order to deliver it better? As faculty went through this process, probably not surprising to some, but maybe to others, they realized, wow, I can do this better, because I think the expectation from parents and probably some students and others would say, okay, this is going to be a second class to what we've done before. This is, how bad will it be? And faculty discovered, something? This is actually better. This will really enhance my delivery. And now it gives us the ability, for example, of creating what we call asynchronous material. Students can look at it anytime. And now, when we actually meet face-to-face in synchronous sessions, we can do more. We can have better discussions. And now students, if you didn't quite get the lecture, you can go back and watch it again. And then, and so in class, we'll have a richer discussion. That's a part of our pedagogical change. But this would be unique to the type of class that you taught. So within the schools, smaller groups were created to have the discussions at the school level, to have the discussions at group level, even through the candles, to think about courses in a different way and a different approach. So we spent time over the summer, and faculty, not surprisingly, engaged this and realized that this new way is going to be fantastic. Now, given that the technology may have been intimidating to some, and Candace went through a process of teaching, we also created from our students is this instructional technology aids. That way we know that the younger generation are much more comfortable with technology than us older guys. So we have this system where these students will now help the faculty with the technology itself, allowing faculty to focus just on the pedagogy. And so this was a holistic effort, and not to mention renovating classrooms and helping faculty to develop their home computer system to be prepared to do this. So it was a really engaging effort for faculty, staff, everyone to get this done. And so it was much more than an investment in more technology and more cameras and those. It was much more thinking more deeply of the course itself, how to deliver it, but also how to deliver it for your type of course, for your type of students, for you do specifically in your class, and more thinking about making it better than just meeting the standards. So it was a tremendous effort.
And what are we doing to support our students in this virtual learning environment? And what are you hearing from our students and our faculty regarding how it's going?
And so and that's, so we did a lot for the faculty. So we said, you know something, we also need to prepare students for this new environment. Um, and I mentioned earlier about their expectation about, okay, this is just going to be worse. Let me expect for it to be worse. So we had communication with the students just to prepare them to say how it's going to be, what's going to work. And this is how the engagement you had through the Canvas mechanism, now you can use that to get into the course. And then information is there for you can get ebooks. And I mentioned the asynchronous material for courses. What we did, faculty then said, not just the lectures, we're going to record lectures, make them available to you. The asynchronous material is going to be available to you. We're going to make course material and maybe course notes much more accessible, because we wanted to be cognizant of students being in different environments. I mean, in different time zones, potentially different parts of the world. And by learning at home, some students may have a lot of privacy, some may not. They may have younger siblings and the like in a home environment. So we wanted to make it as flexible as possible for students to engage in this learning process. So we prepared students for what they were going to learn, how they were going to learn. We prepared the material for them to have access to the material, and ask faculty to have more available office hours for students. And also, they can also access through Candles and even UIS if necessary, to help them with their home connections, for them to have access to the materials that we were provided. So so we with these instructional trade technology aids, they were able to also help on that end as well. And so they can have, and with our technology, you can have breakout rooms. So they're managing the breakout rooms. And now students can also have their own study groups that they would on campus through this technology process. So we thought about it from both extremes. And we continuously check and have frequent feedback sessions from students, from the technology aides, and from faculty. Because one request we made of faculty is to be agile, because the interesting thing about this pandemic is no one can ever say this is how we did it the last time. So this is a learning from scratch for all of us. Sure. And so we need to be agile to be able to change directions or do something different if possible during the process. So we have frequent engagement and very short surveys during the term if it's something that's not working, for us to respond to it. To date, it's going quite well. We've had faculty are prepared, they're delivering things well. We've responded to student concerns, and we haven't received, we survey students, not major concerns from students. And as we ramp into the midterm testing period, we're gearing up for that as well, to make sure that if there's something there with test taken or something else, that we're prepared for it, even for our students that need to have special needs in the classroom. So we addressed that as well. So far things are going quite well, but we're prepared for, because as the saying goes, we don't know what we don't know, because we've never done this. So we're trying to be as prepared as possible for whatever happens.
Now you're teaching this fall, of course, in international finance as part of our executive MBA. How are you preparing for your teaching this fall?
So I've gone through the same process and changing the pedagogy and thinking about my course, and I've had conversation with those that are also teaching an executive MBA program, because again, with the executives, this is a different group. So you think about them as not being as technologically advanced as the 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. So you have to think about it differently, and you have to do more preparation and teaching to them on how to expect things to happen. And so the asynchronous material is done very differently and more and far enough in advance. So again, with their working lives, for them to have an opportunity to go over it before. And it's much more an environment where they share with one another. So we have to use the technology in a way that allows them to share with one another. It goes back to breaking out as we said, with the undergraduate and graduate faculty, breaking them out in groups of like types of courses. So with this, my preparation is much more facilitating the group discussions much more and less focus on the lecturing component, because they're more willing to sit there and watch it over and over again. When we're in class, we're going to have these discussions, and being able to move across the discussions and in discussion groups and have them, and they work better in groups. So having those breakout sessions more fulfilling for those guys. So those are the major different challenges in executive MBA process.
And as a scholar, you specialize in corporate governance and risk management. I'm wondering if there are insights that you might share with us, things that you're thinking about in this moment that resonate with the challenges that our institutions are facing.
That's a great question. I've thought about that. So in risk management, in the beginning, you look at the challenges to the firm and say, what are the risks that we face? And say you're a bank, you look at things like interest rates, look at inflation rates, and look at currency values, and say, well, those are a risk that I can control, I can manage. So risk internally are things that you can control with employees, for instance. You can determine who you are, and those are risks that you can't control, that are things like interest rates and exchange rates. But there are these risks that are, you may hear these black swan events. So you don't invest in preparation for something that you don't know what's going to happen, because you don't know what to invest in. And so then that's in preparation. And so the next step is, how do you respond when the risk happens? Okay, because you can't prevent risk, you manage risk once it happens. Then the sort of the process afterwards, okay, what did we learn from the risk that we had? So what universities are going through now, the comparison, I think, is the global financial crisis in the financial services industry. This is something we couldn't predict this, but it happened. How did we respond to it? And if you look at the continuum of banks, some banks did really well, some banks didn't do so well because of their fundamental preparedness. And then what did we learn coming out of the crisis, and how did the industry change? And we know that the banking industry changed quite a bit since 2007 and 2009. For instance, we almost zero new banks were created since 2009. So over the past 10 or 11 years, we basically have no new banks. We just have a lot of bank mergers. So how is that similar to what we're going through now? Sure. Given that it was an unpredictable event. I mean, predictable, some may say, I knew we were going to have a pandemic soon, but soon meaning when? Soon could have been next year, could have been next decade, but it was less predictable. So I think from a risk management standpoint, we have to look at, as an institution, how did we react to it when it happened? And we know, and how we structurally organize to come out of this. If we look at, for instance, some smaller liberal arts universities, they had a very difficult time, because it was tougher for them to deal with this sort of environment. So that's the first thing. How can we work our way out of what we're in right now? So that's very similar to the financial crisis, and that's what we're in the middle of. That's what I deal with every day, and I'm sure you deal with it at a much higher level in every day. And how are we making it through this? But the biggest component for us, okay, what do we learn going forward, or what investments do we make, or what did we do that can help us going forward? Mm-hmm. And a part of my focus is on that, right? It's to say, what are we learning, and what's gonna stay with us post-pandemic? We talked earlier about the investment we made in technology and thinking about pedagogy. Some faculty say, wow, this is more effective than what I did before. Those things you're hoping it will stick and create new opportunities for our students to engage in the learning process and create more efficiency gains for our faculty in how they deliver their course, our faculty deliver their course. So from a risk management standpoint, we couldn't predict it. how do we do during it, and what are we going to learn afterwards? And right now, what I'm doing is trying to balance dealing in the middle of it now, and what can we maintain, sustain that will help the university post the pandemic period. And so that is very consistent with what we teach corporations to do. And that's how I'm behaving right now in this situation, this position, because I do think the university can come out of this stronger than what we do when we were pre-COVID, and I believe that, and I know we're all committed to that, and I think we will be.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time for this conversation. I'm deeply grateful to you. In closing, is there one message you'd like to share with our community at the start of this new academic year?
You know, a couple of things, and is with during the pandemic and during the times that we're dealing with right now in terms of social justice issues, I think as an environment, as a university, as Georgetown, the way we respond in dealing with this is very important in terms of an example we're setting for our students, for our community, for the nation, and for the world, because that's the position that we hold right now. And I think that the engagement that we're making that we have right now with our students, with our alumni, with one another, really important in how we evolve from this. So one message that I would like to get out there is just to think about the times that we're in. I know this is really difficult, as an opportunity for us to make things better as we come out of it, as a university, as a person, and how we deal with one another and how we deal with challenges in our life. I mean, sometimes we may tend to blame others or blame things around us, but sometimes we always look internal to what can you do to impact, whether it's something within yourself, and some are going to be broader societal impacts, but just to think about it that way. And I try to do that in my life, to think of opportunities that we can make things better after this is over with, and not focusing on the things that we're doing right now. So that's just kind of a small thought that I had that hopefully some will latch onto.
Thank you. Thank you. Rohan, we're grateful to you for your leadership, your many contributions to our university community. Thank you for taking the time to join us in conversation today. And I look forward to being with all of you again soon. Take care of yourselves and take care of everyone around you.
And thank you very much for your leadership, because you're taking us through this, and I know what you're doing is 10 times more difficult than what I'm doing.
Thank you, Rohan, and everyone. Take care of yourselves and take care of everyone around you. For every Hoya, everyone.